Welcome to Parents Who Think. Danusha here. Today we're flipping the script on traditional gender roles and exploring role reversal. We'll be talking about what happens when women take the reins in their careers while their partners take on the role of primary caregiver, challenging deeply ingrained societal norms. I'm joined by Priscilla McKinney today, a successful entrepreneur and mother who has embraced this dynamic with her husband, Steve. Priscilla's story offers a refreshing perspective on how families thrive by redefining traditional roles, proving that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to creating a fulfilling and successful family life. Here's our conversation. Welcome, Priscilla. I cannot begin to tell you how just excited and delighted I am. I really would love to dig deep into what switching roles has been like and is like for you and your husband and your children and your career and, oh God, all sorts of things. So thank you for being here.
You know, Danusha, I would talk to you about anything. So this is a great subject, so let's just go for it.
Tell me about swapping, I'll call it traditional places.
Well, my story, it really starts for us. I grew up all over the world, but I ended up in California for college, met my husband there. And he already was a little bit bucking the system, already, kind of pushing a little bit of traditional ideas about what it is like to be a man in this society. When you talk about switching roles, what did that, look like for us? I don't think it's something that happens overnight. And I believe in marriage or in any kind of relationship, there's no 50-50. There is no like perfect division of either labor or division of responsibility or things like this. So this idea of how did we swap, if there's a more organic process to it than I think we even really understand. So we were both kind of bucking a traditional approach in our own lives. And then when we decided to get married, it just wasn't this massive conversation. And we both worked. We both worked for many years. And it wasn't until we wanted to get out of California and we'd already been married 10 years and we wanted to start having a family. And we realized we didn't want to both be just barely getting by and both going to work. And we did like this ideal of having someone at home. And I really loved my work. And I didn't really see myself stopping that. He sold the company. He then worked for someone else doing kind of that same thing. And it was just a natural, hey, this is good for us. And I don't think in that moment we really thought, hey, we're going to buck the system or we're going to break tradition or, all those kinds of things. It was just really us making the right decision for us.
What's it like to switch roles? I want to know what the hell the problems are. Like, what are the funny things that happen because you're the woman that goes out there and
Okay, so first of all, the irony, of course, is that when women stay at home, it's like, yeah, mm-hmm. And a man stays at home and either people totally disdain him and put him down or they overpraise him. Oh, you stay home with the children. Yeah, I'm like, they are his kids, right? So one funny thing is that you get one of two reactions for the most part. An overglorification of, oh my gosh, what a saint this man must be to stay at home. Or what's wrong with this guy? Why, as somebody said at a cocktail party we were at one time and Steve asked him what he did. He's a lawyer. And the guy asked him what he did. And he said, well, I'm a stay-at-home dad. And he said to him, well, what kind of work are you looking for?
Oh.
Steve was like, yeah, no, I'm not unemployed and I'm not unemployable. I stay at home and I homeschool our children.
Oh my God.
So there's very funny reactions like that. Okay, so that's kind of the background of our life. It's just, you just kind of navigate those things.
Oh, there's so much juiciness in there, isn't there?
I was looking for a new tax accountant for the business. And so I had an early morning meeting and he asked me a pointed question and I got really emotional. And I was like, well, I'm the sole breadwinner. And I had that moment where I felt it all. And it kind of washed over me. And it's a lot of stress. It's a lot of pressure. And Steve carries none of that stress, not because he wouldn't. He very much supports me, but he can't carry that stress because he doesn't know the details of it. And I have to. But likewise, I don't carry the stress of basically all the minute details about where my kids are and who's getting them from here to here and, on and on. And if I were to go step in that and take part of it, I don't think that would be a healthy dynamic. And I think that's what happens with a lot of women who work is that they take all of their work stress and they take all of the kid stress. And I don't think that's always a function of the men putting it on them. I think it is sometimes. I've seen it where even a man, if he's stay at home, she's still going and getting groceries. She's still making dinner. She's still doing the laundry. I'm like, what? How is this? How can you even, keep up with it? So I think there's a lot of mixes in there. I'm just saying that I also do carry that stress and it sometimes it causes me to, kind of turn in or feel like I'm almost going to collapse. I get to share that with Steve, but the reality is that he can comfort me or he can try and support, but I still have to carry that. And this is how traditional men felt, right? They're like, it's all on me. Whenever I hear words or feelings coming out of me like it's all on me, I think, wait a minute, that's too extreme. It's not true, but the feeling is true. I really feel like that sometimes.
Well, exactly. It's exactly that. I think that the feelings of having that, I want to use the word burden, but it's that weight of responsibility of carrying the future survival and thriving of a family, a whole family, and their well-being, their welfare, the housing, every element of it that actually is on your shoulders. And as much as you support it, that's different than actually being responsible for it. And it's such an enormous reversal and a switch between you.
Right.
So as you say, some women and partnerships attempt to do some kind of partial switch.
Mm-hmm.
In your case, I don't think I know anybody that has got as much of 100% switch as you, and I say that with enormous, congratulations, and bravo to the two of you, because so many men who become house husbands, the woman, as you say, still is the one that gets the texts about the parties and the, all the soft playthings and the violin that got lost and all those incredibly time-consuming parts of having children.
Well, case in point, my daughter came home and she said, "Oh, I made the cheer squad," and I was like, "I didn't even know you were trying out for that." And I was like, "So all this stuff happened without my knowing." And I know that as soon as I say that, people are going to be judgmental. Wow, you don't even know that about. No, I don't know that. You know what? I did spend time with my daughter. There's many other things that I do, but I feel like it's a beautiful thing that I don't have to know everything. And I said to her, I said, "Well, I'm proud of you." And you can take that as, "Oh, I didn't even know this." Or you could say, "Wow, I didn't even know this. This is how this family operates." That's cool. And in leadership, what I'm striving to do at work is sometimes you have to create a void for people to be able to find their meaning, find their place, and do something of value. You can't do everything and then expect a year later, 5 years later, 25 years later, to have people around you who are capable and who help. I could go grocery shopping on the weekend. I suppose I have the time, but I don't. You know why? Because it's not my job. And so I haven't gone grocery shopping for 15 years. I would rather sit down for a half an hour and play Legos, with my 9-year-old.
So this is magical. It's so inspirational, because what you're talking about for me is letting go and surrendering to narratives of how you ought to be, the woman and mother that you ought to be, and therefore the actions that fall out of that version in a practical sense, and instead letting go into the fact that you don't have to know. And I've a sense that so many mothers would struggle with, they have to know everything there is to know about their child. And sometimes I wonder if that's a control thing. Like, who am I unless I am in command of every which way piece of information about my child? So I think it's what you're describing strikes at the very heart of the mother identity piece, and how, the kind of version we're sold on, but also how to be with releasing our grip on being that person, just being that woman.
Mm-hmm. It's not that I don't hear those things whispering at me. I hear that voice come up and say, "Oh, you didn't know that about her." It's just I don't need to give it energy. I do have someone who is affirming the value that I bring to the family. And I do say this a lot. I honestly could not operate in this strength if I didn't have this really tremendous support. We'll sit down for dinner and I say, oh, the kids will thank dad for creating such a great dinner. And he's like, well, thank mom for paying for it. It's this mutual understanding of how things happen. And my kids have grown up seeing that. And when I think about it really in reality, when that voice comes up and says, well, you didn't know that about Maya wanting to go, be a cheerleader, I could either give that weight or I could actually say, you know what, my daughter doesn't need me to know everything about her life. My daughter needs me to show up and lead and show her that you can actually have your own life apart from children, apart from a husband, that you can actually be who you are in your own fashion. She needs to see that. I think about that a lot in parenting. My kids don't need me to be a perfect parent. I do need to show them how to, when I do something wrong with them, we really try to be very quick to, apologize, repent, and be like, sorry, we did that wrong. Will you forgive me? And my kids need me to model that. Yeah. They don't need me to know what size shoe they are. I can text them and ask them. It's no big deal. My point to it is that I do battle those voices. I do hear them. I'm not immune to them. And a lot of people just think, oh, she's just cold or calculated or just doesn't care about her kid. No, I do. I just am making some decisions about what is really going to be helpful to them in the long term.
Well, I'd love to tweak that because I absolutely hear that you are doing exactly that. What is going to be helpful to them? But fundamentally, you have a clarity about what is going to be helpful for you. You have that clarity and you're intentionally living and creating the design of your life to bring yourself and doing the groceries and doing all those other things wouldn't be great for you, and it would be a poor role model for your children. That's not the model.
No.
So, and that's what I hear. So yes, you hear those voices. Yes, it's triggered in you. And with your clarity, you keep moving forward. You keep doing what you do.
And I think when you switch traditional roles, you can't flip-flop things. This isn't feminism. Feminism isn't hating men. Feminism is finding a right balance in each of us, that we are all each feminine and masculine, and allowing for finally the value to come in for both things. And Steve is very feminine in certain ways, and he can care for them, and he can he can grab them and when they're crying, and he can be that, that feminine energy to him. He has that in him. He can also, and he is in our house. We have different styles that we go under pressure. When we're under pressure with parenting, he goes authoritative and I go permissive. Now, we both, I think, live in a really nice, happy middle, and we do a good job when we're not under stress. But under stress, we go different ways. But my kids need to see that, and they need to understand that we're not always perfect in that. But the upsetting of traditional roles to me has to do with really walking into it and putting value in people. And when that happens, then those voices of society can quiet down finally.
You are speaking such perfection to me that I'm, internally cheering and whooping. And I'm just so delighted that you can share your story of switching so fundamentally and so intentionally with Steve and what that brings. I'm so grateful to you for sharing this, because we need your voice and we need more of you to show there's possibilities that are different than what we're told we should be doing. Thank you for all you're doing, Priscilla.
You're so welcome. And thank you for being a part of my circle that's for me. I'm kind of tearing up because I know you're for me. Yeah. And I can only experience other mothers being for me when I'm also for me. And so you joined the band, and you and I recognized it when we met. And I think people can find it in a lot of different places if they're open to it.
Listeners, isn't Priscilla's story a powerful reminder that we have the power to create the lives we want, even if it means challenging societal expectations? By embracing role reversal, Priscilla and Steve have not only found greater balance and fulfillment, are also setting a wonderful example for their kids, showing that flex and open-mindedness can lead to unexpected joy and deeper connections. Thanks for listening. Till next time, keep thinking and loving. Take care, everyone.